Excellent. Good morning, everyone. Or well, my morning. This is a worldwide class, and welcome. We're going to continue our tool setup, and I thought I would if you've done the latest pull on the repo, you can see we're busily trying to create some instructional videos for the tools, and I wanted to go through one today. And so first thing I'm going to do is just share my screen. And I will do this one. We were just talking about video editors too, and this is the new one I'm going to try out. But instead, what I'm going to emphasize is, you know what? I shouldn't have shared that way. My bad. Let me fix this. Oh, I'll go with it so we don't waste time. This is the new video editor I'm going to try out. But more importantly, let's go to our GitHub repo together. And I'll check out my repositories here. And again, I'll be moving this to our family's GitHub repo as soon as possible. But you can see we have a whole new subset. I named it 0 because we start with 0 as coders. And let's go through the Google Colab one. And if I go into this basic README file, this is the repo that we've created to help you guys, or excuse me, the shared Google Drive area. I'll start that. This is just, this will be a set of directories we'll form when we do notebook examples. But remember, I'm in Google Drive now. And if you're going to use Google Colab, it is best to go into Google Drive to use it. In fact, I don't know how else you would use it, but I don't want to dissuade anyone that's already in love with Jupyter notebooks on their own system to stop doing that. But I want to encourage you to try to learn this. Why? I'll give you just one example. When you use Google Colab, you're actually using Google's servers. They're virtual machines. They're probably running Linux, but they're only revealing the Python part to you. And I'll go in here. I've already got some notebooks that we'll talk about, but the advantage, let's say you're in a coffee shop and you only have a notebook and you just had this brilliant idea of some code you want to try out. Well, as long as you're connected, you can try it out because you can go here in your Google Drive and start looking at coding that up inside Google Drive. So I'm going to go to New, More, and then I'm going to open a new Google Collaboratory notebook. Okay, now the nice thing, and I'll add this, and I'll just call it examples for lecture. That's how you would change the name of your file so it shows up nicely over here in your file list for this directory. And that will update here soon. Okay, now this works on a cell basis. And the nice thing, if I hover right over the top edge, I can add some text to the top and I can start doing Markdown. Oops, double click. I'm still learning to read, guys. And then simple examples. And once I'm through with that, I can just go down to the next cell. Oh, it got confused. Well, no big deal. I can delete that, or I did. Now, let's just say I want to do something like import pandas or import math or import random. Now, we usually think of our code in segments. And this is the section that we would do imports and such. But the nice thing is, if you're doing this as an example for others, you can start naming these sections. So it's a real advantage. And by the way, you can even use LaTeX type math. You can import videos. There's a lot of things you can do with Markdown. And there's very few restrictions to how you use Markdown, even inside Google Colab. So I'll just call that name for now. And when I am out of this, well, there we go. So now I'm here again. And again, if you highlight the top or the bottom, it will go and add code appropriately. And you can see it's nicely trying to add things that I wasn't paying attention to for my benefit. And then if I want to run these cells, I just hover over the part where the brackets are. And by hovering away, it tells me whether it's been run or not. Once I've run it, it will put a number in the cell to show me the order in which it ran it, unless it's the last one that's run. So you can see it's not hovering away. But if I now run this one, I can see by its insistence here, it's saying this is the last one you ran. And this was, then it shows you the numbered orders of ones above. So if we go back to over here, we can see it's updated that as examples for lecture like we named it. Now let's go to I'll open this simple example where I've already done some work, and I'm going to say, yes, you can interpret this as a Google Collaboratory notebook. And it's starting up the server to focus on this file now. And I've already done some Markdown and some simple stuff. So we'll run through this. And typically the first time you run one of the cells in the notebook, it will take a while because it's waking the server up to focus on this notebook. And then high class. Now over here, I'm doing a simple list comprehension. But in this cell, I'm not showing the list comprehension. And imagine, just like the other example, I've typed these out individually. So my list equals an open list, or empty list. And then for I in range 100, take my list and append I divided by 10 to it, and then print that. And sure enough, it does it right. But we're going to use a lot of list comprehensions. And if you're a little new to Python, this may be strange looking to you. And I wanted to show you how to interpret it by seeing it expanded up here. But these are super powerful, and anytime we can clean up our code with with fewer lines, it's great. You can see this took 3 lines, this takes 1 line to accomplish the same thing. So for X in range 100, X divided by 10 will go in this list, and sure enough, it gives us the same list. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let's go look. I do not know why it's wanting to do that right now, but I will just go back over here. And I think it's because it's wanting to do something that we can just have it do later. Let's open up this fake data file, and I'm going to open Google Colab for that. And in order to do a good visualization, I'm going to import matplotlib.pyplot as PLT, and then import random. Very much like the other one, but we're going to go a little further. And then I run both these list comprehensions. Now this is worth pausing to explain what's going on here. We're going to say 2 times X, but we're going to add a random variable to it. Why? Because, and you will see the power of this more and more as we go through the class, learning to create fake data is going to be one of your most important skills. When you can create fake data, the reason it's powerful is because in order to test your scripts carefully, you you need to understand what pushes those scripts to their limits, what challenges your scripts will encounter, and that means what type of data will cause a challenge to your scripts. So when we create this random variable, the reason I'm using minus 0.5 here is because random.random chooses a variable between 0 and 1.0. By subtracting 0.5 from it, I'm now going from negative 0.5 to 0.5. And by multiplying that by 2, I'm now going from negative 1 to 1. So now I've got noise that can randomly occur about this equation of a line. What is the y-intercept? It's 0. And so you can see that's how it worked out. And if I draw a line through this, which we'll learn to do mathematically later, it would cut right through the center of that, well, roughly based on the random variables that were produced. It won't be exact. But for x and x, do all of this to x. Multiply it by 2 and then add this random variable. Okay, now all of that just to print it.
I'm sorry. I have
Yes,
one question
please.
here. Now, the random to random in general, because we are adding this to the x, whatever, the random values range, how much it will be for this?
So please understand, in the random module or the random class, it has many methods for creating different random variables. And this one is a uniform distribution between 0 and 1. And again, that's why I subtract this 0.5 so that I can go from negative 0.5 to positive 0.5. And the reason I multiply that by 2 is so that I can go from negative 1 to positive 1. And so that's exactly what occurred here. Now, I want to repeat something I said earlier. And after we get through the tools, the thing we're most eager to show you is how you can use Python modules, and how you can even, if you're wanting to do that, go through the derivations of the math that would mathematically take find the line that has the least error for all these points, and that will mathematically show you the equation of a line that will do the best pass through all these random points to create the least error. So thank you for that, Guy. Now, some simple statements here. I chose scatter. We could also choose a line, but I don't want to do that just yet, because if I did line without having the equation of a line, without having the predicted values of that line, if I chose line, it would just try to draw a line between all of these points, and it would just be a gibberish, messy line. But scatter, when you just want to create points, that's the plot function from matplotlib up here that you would choose. And then it's really good to always do this. Set your titles for your graphs, set your X label, that's your X-axis label, as you can see I've done here, and your Y label. And now here, if you didn't use show, notebooks are a little strange. You don't necessarily have to ask them to print it. You'll see me always insist on making them. By the way, if we were in an IDE and we didn't use plot.show, plt.show, it wouldn't show the graph. Very important point. Many frustrating minutes been lost by data scientists and programmers alike because they forgot to type this line. So, I always still, when I want to see something, I force a print statement like I did in this other file. I print my list. There's a lot of times you can write notebooks so it won't do that. I try to write in a notebook like I'm writing in an IDE, like a code editor, in other words. Okay, so we have our plot, and then I save it. I save all those data points to a file. And the way I formatted that is to say, for as many variables as there are in X, I want you to write each line to be, and this means I want you to format a string. That's exactly what that means. And here's the end of the string. And at the end of the string, I want you to put a new line. And when I do these curly brackets, it's saying, look for a variable name. Well, here's a list. Well, what element of that list do you want to use? I want to use the ith list. And that's why I'm going through range the number of elements in X. And the same thing with the Y that we created above, the ith element. And there's as many Y elements as there are X elements. And then so we're going to write this line that we just created a string for to file. Well, where can I see that? I have to go over here to the little files manager for this, and there it is. And well, if I am not careful, I could lose this data when I exit this session, when my Google Chrome disconnects from the Google servers. So we can go ahead and download this to some location we like. And for me, it would probably be just somewhere over here where I keep our class stuff. And I'm doing examples. And so just to preserve that, I could go in ahead and just save it here. But what if for some reason, again, we lose that? Like I accidentally delete it just there from experimenting around. No problem. I want to upload a file. Which file do I want to upload? The one I just deleted. So this is also important because you may have some input files that you need. So we go back to that place we saved it to, and we say, hey, I want to load that. And here's a great preview of it. Hopefully no surprise. And this is a great little message to read. It reinforces what I was just telling you. Reminder, uploaded files will get deleted when this runtime is recycled. It could be that created files may not, but still, there we have it. And now that we've done all that, I want to promise that I will add, as we keep going, some other instructional points to help you make your Google Colab notebook work go better. You might, if you thought, oh, I really would like to put some latex equations in my Google Colab notebooks, you might go into Stack Overflow and find an answer I provided for a hiccup that I ran into and figured out. But if you do a Google search on that, latex math equations in Google Colab, you'll find some rich help to that. But again, I'll be consolidating that. And there's some other tricks like, well, what if I just want to connect my Google Colab to my Google Drive and get files directly from there? There's a way to do that. You have to create kind of a handshake with their API to do that, and you have to restart it, but sometimes that can be very worthwhile. Okay, I'm going to go out of this for now, but I'm eager to add more Google, and I did create a Google Colab instructional video that covers most of what we just covered here, and you can check that out. Okay, the next thing I want to show y'all. I'll go ahead and close out most of this and leave that folder open. But now what I'd like to do is show you some peculiar things about a Python install that could save you a lot of time. So first thing I'll do is go to my I want to go to my environment variables. Now, oh, shoot, I need to stop sharing. So guys, I might need some help here. I'm trying to figure out, I'm not seeing my controls very well.
I think it's under the camera, if you remember. Just check if it's the same camera. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right, but I'm not seeing anything. That's what's confusing me. No, this is a new level of ignorance on my part. So I should have shared my main screen. I'm realizing that now, and yeah.
I'm trying just if it's possible to start the sharing from my side.
Yes, that if you could interrupt my sharing, there you go. Excellent. So now what I can do is pull this over to my main screen. Thanks for saving me there. And then I will just share screen one. That'll make everything easier. Nope, that is not the right screen one. There we go. Screen 4, share. This will be better now. And I'll move your beautiful faces over here. And now you'll see me looking more directly at you. Okay, here we are. I'm down here in the start area. And by the way, I will make some instructional videos for Linux as fast as possible. I might even be making them for Mac. I'm talking to my internal UL team about maybe trying out Mac because a lot of them use it. But notice that just by typing ENV here in the start window, by the way, you can get there as a search if you're using a different flavor of Windows 10. This is what I'm looking for. Edit the system environment variables. Now, once this pops up, and I want to encourage y'all, I'm trying to be sensitive to the spectrum, the gamut, the breadth of different experiences we have among our class members. And I'm trying to remember back before I was a hardened mental fighter, as Eric Sims likes to call us. Clicking on this might have scared me in the past. Don't be afraid. You're big people now. If you mess something up, I'm only a Slack message away, and I will get on and help you as soon as possible. But remember, I'm not the only one. You've got Geith, you've got Tim Gordon, you've got the Manpreet, you've got the other TAs, so we all are eager to help you. Now, here are my environment variables, and there's two that I want to emphasize. In fact, one is not showing up. Path for my user, and then there's path for the whole system. And you could use either one. You have to determine which you want, but usually it's a good practice to just use path for yourself. And then down here, this is super powerful. Why would you have a path variable? Usually when we're talking about path variables, we're talking about specific directory names. If you create your own Python tools, and we'll call them a module, but it's usually a Python file, it'll have classes and functions in it. Well, you can import those, and if you put them here, Python will know to look on the Python path variable that the system specified, and you can go look in the paths that you put. Now, what if I only have one here? What if I wanted another? No problem. I just separate it with semicolons and say, here's a new one. And there you go. And I can just keep adding additional places to look for Python variables, or excuse me, modules that I've created or that I've gotten from GitHub or something like that. But just know that you can do that. It's very powerful. Why would you want to know how to do this? We don't want to recreate tools. We want to improve our existing tools. We want to, as we call, refactor them, but we want to reuse our tools. If we're always creating tools that are like tools we had in the past, we're wasting our time. Now let's go look at this, my user variables, my user path variable. Oh, wow. You can see that I have 3 Python versions installed. And when you've installed a version of Python, I would highly recommend, to make your life easier, that you always have, at least if you're on Windows 10 now, which I hope you all are, because it's definitely fewer headaches than the previous versions of Windows. Users, your username, mine's just this cold number, app data, local, programs, Python, etc. Now, this will be in the instructions for Python, which will have more than just installing Python. It'll have this environment variable stuff. But just for grin's sake, I'm going to delete that one, and I'm going to delete this one. Oh, and in the scripts, it's got all Python installs, then your version of Python, but scripts is important because there's things like PIP in there, PIP. Preferred Installation Program is one of the many acronyms that's probably been made up to say what PIP stands for. But I think it's a comical mystery what PIP stands for, but it's the method by which you add modules to Python. So I'm going to delete that one too, and I'm going to say, okay, and I'm going to back out of this. Now, if after you've messed with your system environment variables, you're having this feeling that why isn't it behaving like I thought it would, it's quite likely that you just need to restart your system. So don't freak out after you've messed with your system environment variables. It may be good enough to just restart. Now on Linux, there's a clever way to where you do not have to restart. And so I'll show that in the Linux instructional videos. And for those of you that are brave enough, and I don't mean that in a bad way because Linux is awesome, to venture into Linux, I will gladly do some extra class sessions that aren't recorded, or maybe we can still record them for Linux install stuff. But Linux is designed to be specifically it was born by Linus Torvalds to be specifically a development operating system. And so when you see Linux doing things other than code development, it's leaving its roots a little bit, but it still does it well because it's so incredibly well designed. So when you go to python.org, because you want to install Python, you just hover over downloads, and I would just always encourage you to take the latest Python installation. Now, a few quick notes. Why would you ever, oh, and I should have done one other thing. I'll do it real quick while we're talking. Why would you ever have more than one Python installation? Well, because you have these virtual environments where you've been doing a large scale Python type development, and you don't want to mess around and lose time with updating that massive amount of code to work with the latest version of Python and the latest version of all the modules that you used. You could get to that, but you may not be at a point where you want to update all that code yet. And so that's why you would have multiple versions of Python. And that's why you would have multiple Python virtual environments, which we'll go over again later. But I'm going to go ahead and uninstall this so we see what a fresh install looks like, and it'll go fast. And while we're waiting for this to uninstall, I do think that sometimes Python virtual environments get mysterious, get a little confusing. Then once you have them on your system and you're using them, they're a breeze, they're easy, they keep all your projects separate. You can define a minimum amount of modules you need for each project that you created each virtual environment for. But I just want y'all to press through. I'm really trying to write the best instructions for how to use and work with Python virtual environments, because now I love them. But frankly, I have to mess with creating the setup on new systems so infrequently, even I get fuzzy on creating these virtual environments. So I thought, okay, it's high time to put my notes on my GitHub repo and share them with the world, but do it in a way too where I can save them the time that I lost learning them and relearning it each time. I did not expect the uninstall to go this slow, so this is a little embarrassing. So I will take some questions while we're waiting. Oh, thank God. Okay, close. Now I will keep my control panel open. And now I do hope y'all will have some questions while we watch the install, because I wanted to do this on a video. I'm going to go on ahead and put this and replace, oh good, I did delete it from. Now you can see this is good. I had a previous install of 3.9.1, and then I recently installed 3.9.2, but I'm going to save that and replace it. And it's just as simple. the download script is not complete Python. What it does when you start the download script, it's really a web-based installer is the best way I know to call it. Now, you see, this is actually grayed. It won't even let me uncheck it, which is actually strange. But remember, we removed Python 3.9 from my path. I'm going to check that so it adds it back. And we can go make sure it does it for, that it adds it to mine and to everyone's. So we'll install now. And this actually, it looks like it's going super fast, but it probably will take a while. These status bars are deceptively, they're just deceptive. And if anyone has a question while we're waiting for this, I would welcome it. The old adage, nature hates. Yeah, go for it, Guy.
I think there is a question from Dirk Shah.
Oh,
can we upgrade Python version with BIP?
say that again now.
Can we upgrade the Python version with BIP, BIP?
Yes, this is a very good point that I'm going to illustrate here shortly. Thank you for asking that. So the setup was successful and the install did seem faster because of the question. Thank you for that. Okay, so good that I kept that open. Oh no, I'll shrink that. Let's go back to that environment variable that I did not keep open, which I did not want to. And we'll look at that. And sure enough, if I go to path and edit it, there it added it back. And I just noticed that it prefers to put scripts first, so I'll do that for these other two. And so there, it added them back after I deleted it. But remember too, for the system variables, we also let it do it for all users. It's interesting that it did not add the path for the whole system, and that's good. It would have just added it to the other users' paths. So if they come in here and open this up, they would have seen it added to their user variables. Okay, now the question that was asked, I hope, now let me know if this does not answer your question, but now we've got Python installed and I would like to just check that everything worked okay. And the other thing I want to check is that it's because of the order I had my path variables, I want to make sure it starts up, that it uses the version of Python that I want it to. So I'm just going to type Python here in a command shell. By the way, after many years of fighting with different terminal emulators in Windows, this has become my favorite one. It's called conemu. Oh, sorry, it may be small to read. I do mention this in our instructions on the GitHub repo for tools and setup. conemu, and I'm on a 64-bit machine, so I use the 64 version. But now I've typed Python at the command prompt. Oh, what a relief. It is actually using Python 3.9.2. And I can just start using Python in here and test things. Now, one reason I like the interpreter, it's a great way to prototype things, to test things out. Well, Tom, I've kind of heard you say in the past that you like to use notebooks for that. I actually prefer notebooks. I actually even prefer using small examples in my IDE, like Visual Studio Code or Atom or Sublime. I prefer using those to the interpreter. But I have friends that are great Pythonistas and they love to use the interpreter. There's an art to using it. For example, if you're going to do something that's multi-line, you just got to know what you're doing. But notice, once I put that colon, it knows, because of the way Python works, that I should have used an additional line, and I don't know why it did that. I must be remembering something wrong. I'll try that one more time. One more time. Well, I'm embarrassed because I've never had that happen. So I don't know if, oh, y'all probably saw it. Maybe if I read the error message more carefully, I wouldn't have had that problem. There we go. Okay. Now the ellipses or the 3 dots is showing me, hey, you're not done yet, buddy. Okay. I tab over and I just say, I'm going to print I. And then I have to do that again. And then it realizes, okay, if you don't type anything else, I'm going to run this. Thank you. It ran it. So that's just a quick example of how you can use the Python interpreter. But more importantly, this is a great way to test that after a new Python install, everything is set up and running the way you expected. If the paths to Python 3.9 were not at the top of in the order of my user path variables, I would have had to go in and fix it if I wanted 3.9 to run first. In other words, if 3.8 were occurring before 3.9, it would have started with Python 3.8 here. Now, let's go look at our file explorer. I'm bringing one over here. Okay, where is your users directory? It's in your C drive usually, unless you did something really strange to your system. Users, here's my cryptic username. Now, again, I will have these in the directions, but you go to app data, local, and we're going down to programs. And now Python. And here are all my Python installations. Now here's what's key. If you only have one Python version installed, and I will look at the questions here shortly, you don't have to worry about what I'm about to show you. But if you have multiple Python versions installed and you're wanting to install something for Python using pip at the command line, or at the command line inside a specific virtual environment, you want to be aware of this. You can go in here and rename this Python 3.9. Now, it could cause a lot of problems. I wouldn't recommend that. But more specifically, you could specify this whole path. In fact, you could come in here and copy it. I'm using Control-C or Control-Insert right now, and I'll show you that I got it in the buffer by just pasting it in here. You could put that at the front and then run Python from a command line like that, or Python W if you wanted it to not start a command window alongside your Python script that you're running. But also, if you go into scripts, what can save you is if you want to run specifically pip 3.9, you can do that. And then you can specifically install Python when you have multiple versions, a new module for a specific version of Python. But I will warn you, I learned this the hard way. If you say Python pip from the command line outside of a virtual environment, it's rare that you would do that. You would only do it if you're setting up a new virtual environment. You still have to do this and then say pip 3.9 and then the module name that you want to install. This is only if you're installing at the system level outside of a virtual environment and you have multiple Python versions, which some of you might have. But this basic philosophy might help you otherwise too. Okay, but if you're ever in doubt, you can go look deep in the Python installs. Now I'm looking at the questions, and Guy, if you can help me field them too.
Hopefully you answered the question that raised. Okay, so because it's about the pip on the system level with multiple versions of Python. So in fact, just I want to tell you that I think we have to cover the question right now because already 10 minutes to close. So Anybody
Yes.
has a question, please, please go ahead.
Greg, perfect question. This is why I'm encouraging you all to take the time to get good with virtual environments. And in fact, I'm working steadily on, by the way, this Python installation would have been an instructional video by now, but I ran into serious problems with my old video editor. So there is a pretty good starter instructional video for Colab. There will be one for the Python install, and I'm going to be doing a very thorough instructional video on the setup of virtual environments, even for multiple versions of Python. So that's how you manage those different projects. The cleanest, easiest way is with virtual environments. They're a dream. And let me illustrate something real quick. You probably wouldn't do this at this level, but once I've finished instructing you on this or you've learned it, it's this simple. Now, you see at the front how it says in parentheses, Pi 3.7 standard. What that is saying is no matter what I do, it will go only into that virtual environment. So this will give us a error message because it's already fulfilled. Well, not an error message, just saying, hey, you've done all this, Tom. What are you doing here? But it also give you these nice messages. Hey, you're using pip version, et cetera, and you can upgrade it. And the nice thing is you can, oh, this is beautiful. Look how it knows, hey, buddy, you're going to have to be very specific and run this line because you've got multiple Python versions and so, or excuse me, you've got multiple environments. So you're going to have to be very specific and run it this way, but you can upgrade pip to the latest version. And literally, I can copy this, right click it, and boom, it just adds it to my latest entry. And I can go on ahead and upgrade that version of pip. And we don't have to watch that. But guys, one thing you'll say later is, yep, Tom, you steered us right by emphasizing learn and get good with virtual environments as soon as you can. Greg and Kimberly, do you feel like that answered that well for you? In other words, more info coming. And by the way, while I'm looking to see if you like the answer, you don't have to use virtual environment wrapper, but I really like using it. And that's what I'm going to teach y'all to use. It's pretty easy. Okay. So Greg and Kimberly, did that answer your question? Okay. Oh, yes. Sorry. I'm learning to read, but really, yes. And you know what, Kim? I think I can get those done today. This new editor, in fact, this is the one I'll be trying. I tried a different one that was apparently a popular free one. I was like, no, too different. Then I tried this one and I was kind of sold at it started out in Linux and went, okay, I got to try that. And sure enough, I really liked the way it was designed. So I think I can get a lot of those, a lot of mileage getting those done today. Okay. I'm done. Did anyone have any other questions? And I too am eager to release those additional instructional videos. You know, if you were taking a wood, I love woodworking analogies. Oh, go on ahead, real quick.
I think
I love
Greg
wood.
has another question. That's all. Greg.
Oh, Greg, that happens to a lot of people. I think it's okay to do that for a time period, but over time, you will probably incur technical debt. Does that make sense? Because you'll get more and more outdated. There'll be some module that could have really helped your operations. But you got to upgrade Python. And now because you've waited so long, ouch. Greg, I'm going to tell you a sad story. One company I worked at, Python 3.5 was out. It had a lot of great modules that would have just helped our work so much. We were stuck not at Python 2.7, which would have been wonderful. We were stuck at Python 2.5. And the kind of lead for our team was such a stick in the mud. He didn't want to incur the pain, but he was willing to incur the ongoing technical debt. And it made us want to pull our hair out. So, I just thought it was, if you could see it, if you could have been a spider on the wall, you would have been like, damn, that looks harsh. That looks horrible. And it was horrible technical debt. Tirth, no. You can install a new Python version with the old one still installed and manage those differences with your virtual environments. It takes a little more work then, but I think it's just like you have to refactor old code periodically. I think it's great to take your old code and make the effort to make it work with the latest version of Python. Now, if you do that regularly, it's really not too hard. It's when you do something like that, Python 2.5, and now trying to get all the way to Python, 3.8, that can get messy. But aren't there times when you are pulling lower version Python code from Git and then and then update it into your version? Absolutely, Kim. But if the version difference is not too big, it's not too hard to figure out how to do those upgrades. Now, if you mean someone else's Git from their GitHub, and you just need to use that code, yeah, that's a decision you've got to make. Like, okay, am I going to use a previous Python version so I can get this project done and this work done, or am I going to take the time to update their code? That's just one of those things you've got to weigh the expense of doing it one way or the other. But right now, the difference between, say, Python 3.7 and 3.9 is not that big. It's more about some fancy things that 3.8 and 3.9 can do that 3.7 can't do. But those are typically more rare things. And a lot of times the modules you install with pip will work across the most recent Python versions. Not always, but most of the time. I can tell you, for a lot of people, the jump from 2.7 to say 3.2 or 3, that was a bit expensive, but people finally made the jump. And some modules, it took a while. The one that really hurt me was, some of you probably seen me use Visual Python. I've been using it for as long as I've been using Python. It's amazing. It's a shame to me more people don't know about it. Okay. I think we're at an end, so I'll take questions on our Slack work group in the pipeline class chat, which people have been using. So that's good. And I'm eager to see everyone at mentoring. And I hope this was helpful today. Please, in the pipeline class chat, give me feedback, what I could have done better. Every suggestion you give, even if it's one that might hurt my feelings, I promise to be grateful for it. And we'll use it to improve the next time we teach. And we'll use it to improve the way we do the GitHub repo. And we'll use it to improve the way we write the textbook too. Okay, I'm really glad y'all liked it, and that's good. But again, we're family. And I know you love me, and I appreciate that. So don't be afraid to leave constructive feedback either in the class chat or to me privately too. Like you may say, Tom, Kimberly might have liked your new haircut, but I did not. Don't let it get that way again. All that's fair. Okay, I'm going to end this before I go too far and let Guy take control again, and I will see y'all in mentoring. Okay. And Dr. Sommer, I just need to say, yes. Thank you. I love it that you're here. Dr. Sommer, thank you for coming, and we're eager to get your feedback on the way we're going about things. I'm very honored that you come to these. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. This section, I understand it fully.
Excellent.
Full understand.
And I can I can slow down my.
Not like the previous. No, not Git. It's new for me as a tool. It's a Git. I know it, but in fact, I didn't use it at all.
Oh,
Git.
good. I'm glad that it helped because I want to share with you.
By Python, I play. Yes, but Python, I play something, and I read continuously and make some programs. Yes.
Excellent.
So I understand your session now.
Excellent. You will fall in love with Git. We'll do another session on Git because there's simple ways to use Git both in the Git bash shell and in VS Code that your former student is going to teach us. That's very powerful. So Git.
I saw it. Yes.
Excellent. Git will become
thanks.
easier for y'all. We promise. Okay.
Yes,
See you in
thank you.
mentoring.
Thank you.